you look at my career starting from having no business experience and no money. In fact, when I started my full-time business, I had $24 capital and I was about $30,000 in debt. I was in a really, really bad situation, far worse than anybody here could possibly be. If you were that bad, you couldn't be able to get a franchise. Nobody would lend you the money. And from that, I built to what we've got now, which is the largest franchise chain in the Southern Hemisphere, at least in terms of numbers, not just in terms of turnover. One of the things that I had going for me, and I really made so many stupid mistakes, many of which are described in this book, but one of the things I had was an absolute fanatical interest in customer service. I had this aim, always from the beginning, I wanted to wow my clients, I wanted to amaze them. And I was in fact one of the first contractors in Australia to own a brush cutter. This is back in the 70s, and everybody knows about them now. But back then, nobody had heard about them. I just got a lawnmower and I was going out there. But when I was mowing lawns, one of the things that used to bug me was edges. Now I had a spoked wheel edger, so I'd go along the mower strip and I'd cut with the wheel edger. And then I'd run the left-hand wheel of the lawnmower on the concrete, because rotary mowers suck from the left because they cut clockwise, and that cleaned it up very nicely. But the edges that I couldn't do were the ones around the trees and around along the retaining walls, that little furry bit of glass. You couldn't do it. It would take you like half an hour with a pair of shears, and nobody did it, and nobody expected it. But one day I was in the mower shop, and this old guy Tom used to run it. He'd been in this business for decades. And I was one of his best customers, because as he said to me once, he said, you know, Jim, you look after your customers better and your equipment worse than any contractor I know. I went into his shop once with a problem with a mower that he had never in all his years as fixing mowers he'd ever seen. One of the front wheels of the mower was stowed in like that. And he just looked at me. He'd seen all kinds of stuff that I bought, and he looked at me and he said, Jim, how could you possibly do that to a lawnmower? And I said, well, it actually wasn't mowing lawns. I was driving on the road and I neglected to fasten the tailgate of the trailer, and the mower fell out on the road, and that's how it got bent. The second time I went in like that, he looked at me very seriously. He said, Jim, remind me never to drive behind you on the road. So I wasn't great with my mowers, which is a mistake, and I should have done a lot better. But I went in with this mower with one particular day, this little shop in Eltham where I was living at the time, and because I was a good customer, he would pick it up and start having a look at it. And while he was doing that, I wandered around the shop, and in the corner I saw this funny looking gadget. It's a long pole, handle in the middle, little engine on one end, and on the end there was this funny looking plastic thing with a bit of white cord sticking out. I had no idea what that was. And I said, Tom, what is it? He said, it's a brush cutter. I said, what? He said, it's a new idea, just out from Japan. It's one of the first in the country. The company called Shikatani made them, only one at that time. So I said, what does it do? So he showed me, he picked it up. He said, you take it here, you pull this little thing there, and that little whizzy cord is nylon, comes around and whips the grass. That doesn't bring back the trees and so forth. I looked at it, and I had in my mind this frustration about these edges that I couldn't do. So I said, how much is it? You know, I've got to have this thing. He gave me a price, and it was, oh, wow, it's a big price for that little thing there. Well, don't blame me, there's no other choice. But I bought it on the spot, didn't have a lot of money, but I had to have that thing. And then I went out, and I wasn't great at using it in the beginning, but I quickly picked up the knack because I was using it a lot, and I could use it in a way that no client could do it for themselves, and I would do edges that were absolutely perfect. Eventually I even got enough control so I could do the concrete, just a little groove down there. So I'd do that, and I'd cut around all the trees and the retaining walls, and I'd leave the brush cutter going. I'd do the nature strip, the front and the back, and as I was coming down the driveway, I'd zip the grass from the cracks in the driveway and blow them off afterwards. I could do a job for my clients that they couldn't do for themselves. And I can vividly remember clients saying to me, I never knew my lawn could look this good. And I just picked up customer after customer after customer because I was absolutely meticulous. And people would actually say, my franchisees would say, and actually this is pre-franchise, my contractors would say, they'd know when I'd done a lawn because the edges were absolutely perfect.